Hey, yo, it's Guido. Welcome back to Tactics Talk. Thanks for tuning in. And what have we here? A brand new Tier 8 Premium American Medium Tank, the TL-1 LPC, which currently comes with a 3D skin that I do not have on it. The good news is you can take it off. So this is going to be my review of this tank. Let's see. Good news, bad news. What do you guys want first? The good news? I'll give you the good news. In a nutshell, this is a very good premium Tier 8 medium tank. What's the bad news? Well, it's kind of a return to that next flavor of the month OP tank, and we'll talk about that as we go. There are a few weaknesses to it. I am not telling you it's the, it's not the second coming of the IS-3, which is going to destroy the game, right? But it is very good, and it is at the top edge of OP. Not top edge of OP, but, at the top edge of being good at a Tier 8 medium tank level. And, with the tier system of the game, because of the noise of Tier 9 and Tier 10s hammering on Tier 8s often, not as bad as it used to be, a lot of times the OP Tier 8s kind of are able to sneak around under the radar for the most part. Usually people know which ones they are. This one is a very good Tier 8. And the interesting thing is, the skin I mentioned, the 3D skin for the band that they've done the collaboration with, I think the fact that it was a collaboration had something to do with this thing having a couple really good advantages added onto it and making it a very good tank. It would probably not do for them to do a collaboration and then release a really terrible tank. The last collaboration they did was with it was another Centurion, right? The Victoria, right? Primo Victoria, and that's actually a pretty good Tier 8 medium as well. That's also on sale at this point. So what about the TL-1 LPC? Well, we'll do an overview. We'll look at the tech tree considerations. We'll look at the 3D model. We'll do a comparison amongst some of its peers. We'll look at my stats, my setup, and I'll give you 3 examples of gameplay of what is really a very good Tier 8 medium premium tank. Let's get started with the overview. So as you can see here, this tank was developed in June 1954, the design anyway. Based on the latest technology and long development cycle, the vehicle was supposed to replace the M48. Work on the design was carried out until January 55, and elements of the vehicle were used in subsequent T-95 project. One thing that was interesting on this to me is, as I kind of looked at it and thought about it, I said there seems to be some design elements of Soviet tanks on this thing to some extent. It is a relatively low-slung, low-silhouette tank as compared to some of the other American tanks. It's got that very angled front hull. That is very Russian-esque right there. T-54, T-62 kind of look to it. And it does share some characteristics with some of the Russian tanks as far as bounciness based on that armor and the angling. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, it's got a very characteristic American turret that looks very much like a Patton or I was going to say Pershing, not really a Pershing, but the later Pattons with that rounded turret right there. And perhaps some of the heavies in there. It does have a large weak spot on the hatch up here, like a lot of American tanks do, a very large commander's hatch on that thing. It's got some viewports in here as well. And there you go. Nice flat back, but the back of every tank is going to be blasted. It is interesting in that it is low slung. If we look at some of the other tanks, you've got the German Panther, which is very large, the Rev, which is based on the M4 hull. Look at some of the more contemporary things you might be playing because they're good tanks. The Rack itself is a little bit bigger. The Lanson's much smaller. That's a fairly recent Tier 8 medium tank that's come out. The Udez low slung. The Progetto is roughly the same size actually, if you look at those two. So a few examples there on the overview. So like I said, a very Russian-esque kind of look to me anyway. Let's move on to the tech tree considerations. Really all you're worried about with a premium is as a crew trainer, and even that's becoming less and less of a priority. But as far as the ease of moving crews around and not having to fiddle fart with the things, it is interesting to know where you sit. And of course this thing has 4 crew members, as you saw on the other page there, or the other part of the video. Commander, gunner, driver, loader. They happen to be band members. They come with a few extra skills along the way. So it's a good crew that comes with the tank, and that's pretty much ready to play at Tier 8. As far as trainer goes, or being able to move around in the mediums, the American mediums that you might use them for, the T-69 and the T-54E1, which are on this weird line over here that goes from lights to mediums to a heavy, have the same loadout. So that's nice. Don't have to worry about that one or the 54E1. The Patton, the Tier 10 Patton, is a 4-person loadout, so it's the same loadout, but it gets a little squirrely when you get to the Tier 9 and to the Pershing and to the medium tank M or T20, and they are running around with 5 guys in there. So it's that good old radio operator addition that you're going to have to deal with. Your radio operator is going to have to cool his heels and wait in the tank or in the barracks or something for you, so that when you bring your LPC guys over, or at least when you bring the, say, the Pershing guys over to the LPC, then he's going to have to hang out and cook dinner, or whatever radio operators do when the rest of the crew is driving real tanks. So there you go. It works, but you're going to lag behind with your radio operator, I guess you would say, as far as that goes. Let's take a look at the 3D model. All right, let's take a look at the 3D model right here. You can see I've got it called up on tanks.gg, and you look at that and go, well, okay, there's a lot of green going on right there. But if you look at the turret, now, this is the live model as you move it around. You know, if you flat plate it, then it's not very much, 137, 144, or whatever. And if you're just kind of look down a little bit on the front hull, but then you get up to here, and there's quite a bit of armor with the angles anyway. But where this thing excels, and where it is a little bit Russian-esque, except for it's also got the advantage of gun depression, is when you start to get up and over and looking down, using that gun depression poking over hills, and you've got this really nice mantlet and a really nice rounded turret right there, and then you start getting these auto bounce angles on this upper plate right here, and if you can keep them from getting into your lower plate, then you've just got a really nice armor profile right here if you're able to just stick that up and over anything. Again, if it's any kind of getting level with the tank or higher than that front plate is not so good, but because of the way it's angled, it doesn't take a whole lot of look down or look up from the shooter, look down from the guy you're shooting at, the tank you're shooting at here, before you're getting some very difficult to pin kind of angles for this thing. So that's the interesting about it. If you look at the big tumor up top, it's quite large, pretty easy to hit, especially close in, and it doesn't have a whole lot of armor. And then it's the standard rounded turret. Now, it's not as nice as the saucer shape as the Russian turret. So I'm not saying that this is exactly a Russian model for armor, for the armor layout, but it is more similar than most any other American tank. And I keep bringing this up because it is an advantage in the way the game is designed and the way the game is played. And the positions that you can use in this game that are strong tend to favor tanks like the Russian tanks, minus some places where you really need depression to work. And you've got a lot of tanks that have great depression but not great turrets. And the few American tanks and some of the Brit tanks that have great turrets and great depression that can use those to great effect. But they tend to not have that kind of front armor, that top plate angled armor, so that if you can get up and over the hill and shoot them into their upper plate, a lot of times you don't have a lot of trouble. This one has a bit of an advantage in that case. So I'm not saying it's the end-all be-all, but I just found it interesting because just based on the way this game is played and designed, this thing has a lot of advantages based on that design. Hopefully we'll get into that a little bit during the replay analysis as we get to it. And that is it for the tanks.gg and model. I'll spit it out, the 3D model. Let's go to a comparison, take a look at it and some of its peers. All right, let's take a look at a comparison. Remember, when I do these things, these are stripped down to 100% cruise and all equipment and other bonus types of items taken off of it. The KR still has its camo because you can't take the camo off the KR. I have selected mostly premiums here. I've got a Pershing, which is kind of the analog tech tree tank to the TL-1 LPC. And the rest of the premiums I've selected are some of the better ones, I think we would agree, and some of the newer ones. Centurion 5.1, the Lanson, the T-54 Mod 1, T-25 Pilot 1. I did not take any of the pref matchmaking mediums here to take a look at this. And immediately, one of the most interesting things about when I did this, I always look at this and say, all right, where's its big advantages? And one of the nice things for this type of comparison tool is that it's got a big green number for the tank that has the best in the class. For example, you have 226 pen on the Centurion 5.1, so it's best, I said, in class, but it's the best within this comparison, the particular tanks that are up here. And as you see, what's really interesting about the TL-1 LPC, which I have already told you is a very good tank, is it doesn't really, apparently anyway, excel in any one thing. Well, that's a little bit disingenuous right there, or a little bit tricky, if you will. It does have a 400 view range. That's fantastic, but that's down at the bottom. Let's go back up to the top and start taking a look at this, because it's very interesting. This is a great example of the sum is much greater than the parts on this. And everything about this is near the top or just about where it needs to be. And then there's one massive advantage we'll talk about, other than the Armour modeling that I've already gone through. So we take a look at this. We've got 280 average damage per shot, which you might go, okay, it's not top because the Lansing's at 320, but 280 is pretty good, right? Most of these tanks are running 240 to 250. Most American mediums are right around that 240. So right off the bat, you've got a little bit more punching power. The average penetration is 208. Again, not top in this group, but certainly at the top in this group. And the 5.1's a bit of an outlier. I think that's the best non-premium pen, or it's very close to it in the Tier 8 medium tank class. But 208 is very useful, or very usable for a regular AP round. We'll get to the gold round in a minute. Some of you already know. The rate of fire 7.11 is good, not amazing, but definitely up there. Reload time is okay. Gun traverse is decent for the turret. Depression's -9. That's an interesting choice on that one. It's not 10, but 9 is close, and basically fights as a -10 would. Aiming time's at 221, which is decent. Again, not top of the class, but pretty good. Not as painful as the M46 KR, for example. And the DPM is 1,991 with a dispersion of 0.36. So you've got a bit more punch, more alpha, and you haven't really given up a whole lot of DPM, at least in comparison to the rest of the tanks in the class. You look at the Pershing at 1832. It's doing 240. Its advantage is slightly better dispersion, same aim time, and one more degree of depression and one more degree of elevation, which I thought the 19 on the elevation was kind of interesting. So I thought that was sort of fascinating, actually, because it looks like there's been some things carved off the edge of this, but you add that nice alpha of 280 and a good penetration, and now I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. 280 heat pen. 280 heat pen. That is tops, other than one tank that I could find, and that's the Object 416, which freakishly has 330 pen. 330 pen. So a very good gold round, a pretty darn good penetration with regular AP, a little bit more punch, the same DPM and gun handling comparable to the rest of these things, and what you've got is a pretty darn good gun mount. Then you add the depression, you add the good turret, you add the hold down capability with the sloped armor, and all of a sudden you've got a tank that plays really well in World of Tanks, the way World of Tanks is currently played, the meta. I know that's going to irritate some of you when I say meta, but I love it. All right, the whole armor is at 88. That's relatively thin, but remember, it's all about the angling. Obviously, if you flat plate 88, you're not going to have any trouble going through it. Turret armor is 177. Now, it's not Centurion thickness, is it? The turret is susceptible to Tier 9 and 10 and high pen Tier 8s, so you do have to watch for that. If they get any kind of angle towards the side, it tends to flat plate really quickly, unlike the Russian, at least the T-54 design. The T-44 has a similar problem when you start getting around the side of it in the T-54 Mod 1, that you have a more flat plate kind of idea on the turret right there. So turret 177 is definitely usable, though, and we'll get to my stats because there's an interesting stat that shows that the armor on this thing is actually situational to some extent, but usable. The engine power is kind of low, and that gives it a fairly low specific power, and you will find that even though its top speed is 50, it is a bit sluggish. So that's the one knock against it that I would give, is that the mobility, at least as far as jumping off the line, getting up to speed and going, it is a little bit sluggish. It will get to 50, though. It does eventually get there, but it does take some time, and it doesn't like to climb very well. The hull traverse is high. That's another thing that maybe made me think it felt a little bit like a Russian-esque kind of tank. In fact, it's better than the T-54 Mod 1. Now, you'd have to look at the rest of the soft stats and things for mobility. I'm not going to tell you it's a hover medium. It's not, but it feels more like that than say a Pershing does or a KR. And I thought that was really interesting about the tank. We get down here. This is funny, and Wargaming makes balance and design decisions, and in general they try to follow certain rules. But the Centurion 5.1 is much larger and taller than the TL-1 LPC, and it actually has better camo, which cracked me up. But anyway, some of the worst camo, and that's kind of one of those things where I think the developers understand some of what they're not some of. They understand what the numbers mean in their game. I mean, clearly they've been designing this for a long time. So when they make all this so good, and it's a really good package, then all of a sudden you see other things that aren't so good as balance decisions. Well, this is not going to hurt it, but still, it's got some really crummy balance, or some really crummy camo as a balance decision, at least in my opinion. And a 400 view range, which is fantastic. That's very good and very helpful, especially at tier 8, because you're dealing with 9s and 10s often at a tier 8. So what do we have overall here? That was quite a long discussion on the comparison, but I think it's important because on paper, this looks like relatively mediocre. I mean, good, but not amazing. But I'm telling you that everything put together and the way you can play this thing in the game makes it a very, very good premium tank. And that ridiculously high pen, which is a bit of a head scratcher for me on the design and balance decision side. Although I will then call back to what I said early on, it's very unlikely they're going to do a collaboration with a big, call it a big band, with a well-known name, I suppose, and then put out a crappy tank. That is highly unlikely, and what they've done here is put out a pretty darn good tank for this particular band and the collaboration. All right, let's move on to the next. I think I made that clear. All right, stats-wise, how did I do? Well, I did pretty well numbers-wise. I only managed a 50% win rate. I was a little bit YOLO-ish. Only 20 battles, so I played 20 battles for you guys to get a feel for this thing. I feel like this is a 55 to 60% solo tier 8 medium for me, just based on how comfortable it is. Somebody else mentioned this. I don't remember which CC it was. I wish I could remember where I heard it from, and maybe I've heard it from multiple. I'd name drop if I could, and it may have been, I think it was maybe Cody. I'm not sure. Cody Menz. But anyway, they had a great quote where they said something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, that it's very comfortable tank right out the gate. You're going to get in it, you're going to start driving it, and it's going to be comfortable and easy to play. It'll be like you've played it 100 battles. And I completely concur and agree with that. There's not a lot of learning that you have to do with this thing. You may have to work a little bit with it being kind of slow as a medium, but that's about it. It does everything else that you're used to doing and winning with in World of Tanks. The hold down, the popping over ridges, the using the turret. It does it. So that was interesting. So what did I do? 50%, like I said, 1,048 average XP per battle. Anytime I'm hitting 1,000 or close to 1,000 at tier 8, I'm doing pretty well in that tank, at least for me personally. So we've got 30% battles survived, which is a little bit low and speaks to the only 50% win rate. But look at the hits, 81.65. 81, that's good. And supposedly the gun's a little derpy. I found the gun to work a lot better than the stats showed. And that's just a feeling. I know you guys have that probably with tanks yourselves. I don't know what that means. It's probably just, in your own mind, that's what you think, but I'll throw that out for you. It just felt like it worked better than the stats would indicate. Damage ratio 1.64, destruction 2.71. Look at the armor. Remember I mentioned that? 0.42. Anytime you're at 1, it's very good armored vehicle. Anytime you're at 0.5, it's good situational armor. In this case, it's the turret and the hold down capability that's doing this thing right. Those are the things that are doing this thing right. Anytime you got a really rounded, angled turret, you get a lot of weird bounces as you're doing the hold down thing, especially if you're rocking back and forth and spoiling aim and have a good mantlet. So that was nice, and it did work out, and it was good situational armor. We talked about the experience already. 2,000 is good for me. If you look at the pilot, I'm doing 1762 with a 60% win rate. If you look at the KR, I'm doing 1249. That's awful, but only 14 battles. You look at the Pershing, I'm doing 1559 with a 59% win rate. So it is definitely up there. Now, do I expect I would run 2,000 if I did 100 battles? No. I feel like it's more like an 1,800, maybe 1,900 if I continue to do well, but more of an 1,800. Still, that's near the top of my capability on this and pretty darn good. 609 on the average assistance, 1.39. That's pretty high for medium, so I talked about YOLO. I was a little bit YOLO-ish with this thing. And as I got more comfortable with it from the beginning, I tended to get a little bit more out in front. I also had a really good run of only Tier 8 battles, which was very strange. I don't know if they tweaked it just for this thing's release or what was going on. I rarely saw any Tier 9s in this thing. In fact, I only think I have one example for you with anything other than top tier or same tier. Destroyed at 1.9. We've got maximum experience, and then I did 3,581 with 6 kills is the best. Class 1 is the best I did, but I will tell you I had 6 or 7 3,000 damage games. I had a few real tomato games that averaged out to the 2,000, but I have 3, I think, 3,000 damage games to show you, and I had another 3 or 4 on top of those. Some of them tended to be losses based on that 50% win rate. So there you go. The numbers, I think, show exactly what I talked about. It's just a really good medium premium Tier 8. Let's take a look at my setup. One good thing is you're getting a good crew that comes with a couple skills. They're going to have the brothers in arms. Look, they got the little heavy metal thing going on right there. The 2 fingers, the horns, whatever it is. 6 Sense, I think you can pick one more skill, and then they started working on their 3rd skill. I don't remember if this is a 0 skill, 1 skill. Doesn't matter. It's a good crew. It's also a premium, so you can put a really good crew. And the point of that is I had a decent crew for those 20 games, and it was the one that came with it. I ran Vert Stab. So Vert Stab and Rammer, I think, are mandatory on this. You can argue whether you want to use vents or optics. I'm leaning more and more towards optics. I used to not think it was that big a deal, but I find that I'm doing a little bit more spotting these days than I used to. And maybe I'm late to the vision game being important, but I find the game these days in the last 6 months to a year to be unbelievably campy, with people hiding in the back, trying to avoid wheeled tanks lighting them, trying to avoid giant TDs, all the different arty, all the things that cause you not to want to get up front. And I just feel like the optics are the thing to go with. But there is an argument to be made for the vents. I used large kits, so in a bit of tryhard mode, a large fire extinguisher, and I did run directives on occasion. Anything that helps with the gun handling or loading is probably the best thing you want to use for the directives right there. So that was my setup. All right, let's take a look at 3 examples of gameplay in the TL-1 LPC. All right, the first one is a pure Tier 8, pretty classic place for a good hold-down tank to go. We're here on Live Oak, so I'm going to go work on the railroad tracks right here with lots of undulating terrain and the ability to use this thing's hold-down capability. So we'll see how this one goes. This ends up being my first Class 1. Like I said, I didn't ace it, but I did have several Class 1s, probably 4 or 5 of those. So we're going to come over here. We see a Lynx goofing around. We got a Carnarvon AX. We're going to try to sneak a shot into that guy. We'll use this little bush right here, although I don't use it correctly because he sees me. And I sneak a shot. And there's pretty nice gun handling, right? I just came up and over nice and slow, aimed in a little bit, took a shot, and went right into the bottom of the Cairns plate right there. See the T-69 pushing in. The Lynx came in but really didn't do anything. And based on what I'm seeing back here in the back, this LT-432 has let me know that a couple of them are kind of, look at this, we got a 69 here, so he's not going to be a problem. 112, the RHM hanging out in the middle. The TL is still back here shooting at him probably. T-44 maybe, so it looks like they right now did not bring a whole bunch, so we're just going to press that advantage. Again, I come in there, look at that. What, did he shoot HE? He did shoot HE. So the Carnarvon gets a shot on me. He reloads nice and quickly. I go by him. I put another shot into his side, and down he goes. No problem. So I'm watching this 112. We'll back up here. We'll take a nice aim shot, and I should have snapped, right? Because I should have snapshot. Javier lives, and someone else kills him. And now we're going to come up here, and we'll use this nice hold-down capability. Little -9 gun depression. Nice turret. The other T1 LPC is hanging out back there. So far, I haven't shot any gold, but we'll look here just a minute. I believe it is this example where I'll show you bouncing off that upper plate of the enemy TL-1. Look at that. Just snap it. Sneak it right in. Snapped it. High roll at 311. No problem. Coming around here. They're tearing up the Lance and C. I'm going to take a shot, and that goes into the ground. And I push number 2. So now we're going to use heat because I don't want to really deal too much with the turret. So we'll sneak one in there. I think that actually went into that hatch as he moved back. So a little bit of luck involved on that one. I wasn't really aiming at the hatch, but that's what I got. Put another shot in there. See how he's turned his turret and given me a little bit of the side of the turret? Makes it much easier to pin. Come over here. And we take him. Okay, maybe it's another example later on. I didn't have any trouble just pushing 2 and going through that poor guy. So we're up to 1,949. The 6x6 goes by. The 44-100 has fallen back. I try to take a shot on him, and we missed that one. And he gets away around that corner. And I don't want to push into it. I know there's an RHM over there somewhere. We've got a nice advantage. There's no sense just to drive up that bottom area there and get nuked for 750 if the RHM's running the big gun and then finished off by one of those other guys. Because out in the open, this thing's armor isn't that great. It is definitely a tank that you want to use hull down. So we'll cross the tracks right here. I'll just take the chance that the RHM isn't posted up in one of these bushes. I'll get down low so I can come up underneath them. And it looks like the town's doing okay, but there's a bit of a comeback that happens over in the town. Those guys are a bit outnumbered. We've got a lot of power over here on the east side, and right now they're not engaged because there's nobody to shoot at. And they're all going to push in, so naturally. So we'll come up here. We've got guys running around. Use this bush as cover. A few bad shots in there. I'm shooting heat, so it's going to, if there's anything in the way, like a wall or a post, it's going to be eaten by a wall or a post. And I think that's hard cover. I don't think that can be destroyed right there. So a couple kind of useless shots in there, so I'll pull out of that. No sense doing that. I'm wondering where this RHM is. Taking a look there, but they're well inside those buildings. I'm not going to have any shots there. Move around here. Now, the mobility is decent, right? I'm not zinging around the field at Mach snot, but it is enough to get the tank around. And look how slow it is coming up and over hills. Just struggles a little bit with those. I decided to move into town. I figure like maybe the RHM has moved into town or he's up in the north there. Those three are engaging over there at the cap with the links, and the enemy team's making a bit of a comeback. Like I said, they've cleaned up some of our city guys, so I feel like I need to get in there and help these guys. So that's a medium kind of thing to do, going to the place that you're needed the most. I'm a little bit worried about the 69 because if he reloads and does some pretty good penning, he could actually take me down before I could get rid of him. He's a 2-shot to me, maybe 3. And I'm thinking, well, how am I going to handle this? And somebody nukes him. Boom. That brings him down to a 1-shot, and I'm able to take him out. And I'll just do the medium thing. And all of a sudden, I look up at the rolls, and there's almost nobody left. So we'll just push into these dudes and put a shot into him. 261, little low roll for that guy. Get by him so he can't shoot me. He dies. And then we'll go ahead and just hit the hawk and take him out. And we'll end up with 2,880, 256, 3 kills, and a Class 1 mastery. So pretty typical medium tank gameplay, and especially showing some of the hold down capability of being able to peek over, especially that place where I took on the other TL-1 LPC, which is this bowl right here, and shooting that way. That's one of those very important things you need to have. With the Russian mediums, you're going to have to expose yourself a little bit more, or come up top, or come up at an angle on the ramp and shoot across your hole, that kind of thing. With this one, much more comfortable, easy to use, not as much fiddling around with the rocking back and forth. They're trying to get out and take a shot. All right, let's look at the second example. Second example, we're here on Corellia. We're on a defense, and I'm headed up here to the northeast. And this is a pretty funny game because 6 of my teammates do 0 damage. Doesn't end up mattering, though, because this thing is so comfortable to play, and I am top tier. So a good player, top tier, Corellia defense with a nice hold-down fighter. Things are going to go well unless I get absolutely swamped and swarmed. So the STG's coming in. I was a little bit concerned about that, but I did note the Type 59s on the other side, so that's good. Now I'm looking for the Mod 1 and the Proto and the other TL-1 LPC, which is definitely could be trouble. So I'm going to go rocking back and forth. You can see I've already pressed 2. I'm sort of expecting one of the heavily armored guys to come up, so I want to make sure that first shot goes in. and I get a little bit of a hit point advantage, at least on that guy. And as soon as I'm seeing, I'm going to run back around the corner and avoid getting nuked by the 3 artillery. But this takes forever for anything to develop, so I can tell right away from what I'm looking at that this is a fairly passive enemy team. And if I am careful and don't YOLO in and get swamped and killed, especially by their camping TDs, I should eventually have a pretty good game. So we see this guy, he's not even really looking. There's that heat right through a T-54 Mod 1 turret. Looks like it got him. I might have been in the side of the turret there, but 280 pin, man. It's really nice. It is really nice, and that is exactly what I intended to do there with pressing 2. I wanted that shot to go in and create that early advantage on at least one tank. The STG decides, you know what, we're just going to go take this hill. And I think, well, it's early, but all right, I'll back you up. Let's see what we can find. See if we can surprise somebody right here. And we find the Mod 1 still goofing around. There's a lot of artillery, a lot of TDs, and I'm taking a bit of a chance, but let's work this hold down capability. I come too far, and I eat a shot from him, so he fires some APCR through me. There's the LPC. He's running around down below. For the moment, he can't help. The STG goes in after, and then all of a sudden he's out in the open there. And there's that turret armor I just bounced off of the LPC turret armor, and the 54 Mod 1 makes a runner. Put another shot into him, light him on fire, down he goes, and now the LPC. The good news for me is the STG has all of the attention of their campers up on the hill, so I will use that opportunity to move by. The further south I move right here, the better off I am, and the fewer shots they can take on me. So I come in here and I'm waiting. Hopefully that LPC will come up, and then I say, oh geez, look at this, an AFK 31 FG. So I'll take that guy down. Always helpful when the enemy team has, did I say camper? AFK. And the LPC has no idea I'm here. That's just low SE in his part. He should have known I moved down. I think I was lit the whole time. And he shoots, and he's not even really looking at me, so I get a shot on him. I'm going to get another shot. I should have gone after one of his wheels. I tried to actually late, but I wasn't able to get the aim in there, so I just took the shot. He goes off and dies. So that's helpful, especially when 6 of your team do 0 damage. A couple of their tier 8s more or less taking themselves out of the game is always helpful. So I'm going to fade back this way because I'm a little bit worried about what's going on down in the southwest. And I don't really at this moment want to just push into their backfield. There's just too many tanks left. It's kind of even. If I go back up to their camping spawn area, the spawn area where their guys are camping, or some of them are camping, and get pinned down and they're able to push in towards my cap, then I'm in bad shape. But then I look at it and go, oh, okay, a couple more deaths on the enemy team. This is actually looking okay. Down goes the 40 TP, so I actually come here and I see that there's an IKV over there watching the approach. So I'm just going to grab this push and let this develop for just a potato. Kind of curious, where's the prototype? The King Tiger's down in the south down there in the southwest. I'd really like to know where the prototype is. And the 2801 also is kind of an issue if he's down in the middle spotting. T69 is down there in the southwest looking for the King Tiger. The STG goes by me there. The IS, I believe it was, tried to push into the backfield and got nuked, and that's what I wanted to avoid, is just driving back there and getting shot by 3 or 4 tanks who are all camping. So we will wait for this for just a little bit. And it's a bit of a timing thing. I'm not going to wait the whole game. At some point, there's the King Tiger. He's seen again. It's going to get close enough in time that I'm going to feel like I can push in and get some hit points and not really worry about losing the match. So we'll back out of that. We'll fade to the left here. Flex. We're going to flex to the left here and go flex on the enemy team. So we'll work back here, looking to go south. See what we can find down here. Where are these guys? We push in and I'm going to find them here in just a moment. Oh, holy cow, there's the KV-85. He's actually moved all the way around that way. He doesn't seem to see me. So sneak a shot on that guy and bounce. That's a bummer. And then I get hammered by the IKV. There's the IKV. Found him. Moving back to find a little bit of cover. We'll zoom in and we'll back out. And holy cow, there's the 2801. So there's all 3 of those guys. Now I'm very glad that I didn't sneak in there. Try to snap on the 2801, but don't quite get it. IKV's got good penetration. The STG comes in there and starts taking them on as well. So I don't really want to duel with him, especially when I can't see him. with the potential of the KV-85 coming up on my side, he's got a pretty good gun. So I'm actually just going to back on out of here. See if we can't vision control these guys a little bit and whittle them down instead of just wading into them, because I don't think the S2G and I would last too long unless we were both able to hit one early on and take them out. So we'll go back this way, a little more careful than I usually am. I'm pretty proud of myself right here. We find the KV-85. He's pushed up a little bit into those bushes. So we'll just sneak up over here with a little hold down action. Maybe he'll come around and I'll get a free shot on that guy. Where is he? No, don't see him. Oh, there's somebody. We got the 2801 right there. So we'll just drop him, although the 25-2 does it. It was nice to see the 25-2 move forward and come help. Down goes the STG. Proto takes a hit. And inexplicably, the Proto turns around and runs. So, okay, fine. We'll just shoot him in the back. That's a good thing. That's an armor profile. That's an armor profile I can handle right there. Now we've got this guy. He's got one of the smaller guns. I try to sneak by. Holy cow, now we've got an IKB-90B. Artillery helps out. He's tracked. We'll sneak another one into his track. Pin him down right there. I've got the IKB coming up on me. I like that, the aggressive IKB. Good on him. Alright, well, I'll just take a shot on him. He ends up getting one on me. And that was the worst result right there. I wasn't able to take out the one of their guns, and the other guy actually got a shot on me and pinned me, but it's all over now. We've basically got him handled. This guy just comes on in here, and I think he does get another shot. Artillery comes in and hits me too. Boom, boom. Now the Proto's down there. Proto looks like he's running for it. We're up to 3,352. I avoid another artillery shot from the M44. I want to sneak around here into this bush. Well, I don't think I really quite can. If he has any kind of vision, he should see me right there. Nope, doesn't see me. He's just making a runner. He thinks those guys are coming from that way. Not a lot he can do about me behind him, and we take him down. The M44 is out there. This was a bummer. I thought I was going to get another kill on this. I was like, all right, excellent. Rushed the shot just a little bit, and he got away. So we end up missing, and he is going to die momentarily. There we go. 4 kills, 3,581, 1,088 assist. Again, 6 of my team did 0 damage, so pretty funny. I'll show you the results here in just a minute. But the reason I wanted to show you this one is top tier. It's just a really comfortable tank. This is a great map to show it because of some of the hold down capabilities and the fact that you do need to be kind of mobile if you want to get up there and take these hills and then react to the rest of the battle. So just really a comfortable, good tank. All right, let's look at the third example. All right, third example, I'm 1 tier down, but I don't really end up fighting any of the tier 9, so not really a factor on this one. Like I said, I didn't actually have many tier 9, tier 10 battles where I had to take them on, but with the penetration and the few times I did have to take on heavily armored 9s, it did not bother me too much. So we get I don't know what this light's doing. He just comes trolling on in here, and I sort of no respect him, and I eat a shot in the side I probably didn't need to eat. If I'd have been a little more clever with my maneuver, I might not have had been able to take that or had to have taken that. I just chase him. I think this is where I give him a shot. Maybe I didn't take any damage from him. There you go. I thought I did. But he does a nice job backing off into the water right there, and I can't quite get to him. I expect him to drown, but he actually is able to keep himself alive and gets up and out of there. There's a Leo in there. That's just a bad job. He was actually a little to the right of that. Using the indicator, trying to get a shot there. So I know he's in there. Now, we're going to use a little hold-down capability here pretty soon. Let's try to sneak a shot on him here. I actually missed that. What he's doing is he's backing down off the back of that hill right there. The T-29's coming in. So I'm just going to accept some maybe shots in here to get a little shot on the T-29. I'm actually stunned, and look at that. The shot goes right in. That should have missed by all rights. So a little bit of RNG helping me out. T-29's getting torn up. You see the WZ moving across, and he's going to come up here. It takes me a while to find him. I don't quite get a shot, so I decide, all right, I can probably get both these guys. We'll just come around here. We'll take out the T-29. We'll just hope that there's not a big TD back there. There does happen to be one, but he's off to the left, so he can't actually get me. Now I'm starting to work on this WZ. So just very comfortable, right? Nice depression, good hold down tank. Not too worried about getting my turret pinned by these guys. Now, the Panther is going to make a move here. I'm going to turn around. And he comes up and I'm like, all right, I'll just get a shot on him. And he sees me and just puts a nice shot right into my side. He's got that little gun, you know. He's dropping 240. I dropped 253. Low roll, unfortunately. Now I'm just wondering, all right, is this Leo still in here? So the only way to find out is to get here and get dark. Got to wait a long time. Get dark. I know the Sturb is up there. Someone's clicking on him because they've probably been hit by him a couple times. Like, all right, so the Sturb's there. Where also is the TS5? I don't see him lit. And the WT Panzer IV. So I do this a couple times. Like, where is this guy? Don't get lit. So I push in. So I wanted to push in here because this position is really good for peeling guys out of that position where the Panther II is if you've got the gun depression. Come around, I find him. Don't even really have to wait till it's fully zoomed. You can see that nice gun handling, and I just park myself in here. -10 works a little bit better here. Obviously, more depression is better, but -10. But -9 is just fine as long as they don't come up too high right here. And now I'm just having my way with going through, and that's just a regular 208 pen going through the flat-plated Panther armor right there. Just looking for a shot into the side of the turret. There we go. 295 on that roll. And just another good example of this thing's armor profile and its gun depression and its mobility, being able to use good spots like this on the map. So we take that guy down. We'll speed this thing up. I'm looking for the Leo because I know he's here. The route is on. We're winning by miles. Finally find him. The gun does let me down there. A little bit of a miss on that one. Then it looks like maybe he's trying to drown himself or something. I'm really not sure. Or at least get to the low ground. But I get one shot into him right there. He takes a big hit, and then before I get another shot, he disappears. Again, we'll cross the river, come in here. I get a bounce off the Sturb because I'm shooting right into that highly angled armor. Still firing just regular AP. Come in here, I'll get another bounce, unfortunately, trying to get around behind him to the side. Don't quite get there. Now I'm charging in alone. Unfortunately, I've lost a couple allies, and the other guys aren't close enough. So I come in here. I actually missed this WT. Well, I thought I was auto-aim. Didn't work. I'm going to eat a big shot from the WT on the side. No surprise. I get one more shot here once I get my turret unlocked because I'm out of the water. And the WT is inside my reload, so there's no way I'm getting another shot. This is a good example right here of the high pen TDs at tier 9 and 10 aren't going to have a whole lot of trouble with the turret. Even though you're saying, hey, Guido, it's a great turret. Well, you know what? At 177, it's good, but against something like that, it's not great at all. So a little bit over-aggressive in there. Probably could have farmed a few more hit points if I'd have been a bit more careful using bushes, things like that. But I felt like we were all charging in and we're going to just eat them alive, but my help was a little bit further back, and the couple guys I had coming with me died real quick. So I think a really good example, again, of just how comfortable this tank is, how it can use a lot of the terrain in the game, and it just is built to play the way World of Tanks is played on the maps that we play World of Tanks on. It just really does excel. It's a good tier 8 premium. Alright guys, that is it for my review of the TL-1 LPC. This is a very good premium tier 8 American medium. In fact, I would say it's easily in the top 5 of premium mediums at tier 8. It is the jack of all trades that most American medium tanks are, but it's got some extra bonuses and buffs around the edges that really put it over the top. The number 2 pen being so high is one of them with its heat. Its armor layout and good turret and good depression being another one of them. And really, at the end of the day, it has virtually no weaknesses other than obviously the weak spot of the tumor on the top. But as a general overall design goes, it doesn't have any real big glaring weaknesses and has quite a few nice things around the edges, like the alpha damage at 280, the penetration I already talked about, the armor layout, and the ability to basically run around the maps in World of Tanks and use most, if not all, of the positions to maximum effect, or at least as well as a tier 8 medium can do. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in and checking out my review of this tank. It is definitely a good tank. So I usually don't recommend whether you buy it or not. That's up to you and your money situation, your personal situation. But if you're looking for one of the top 5, easily one of the top 5 premium mediums at tier 8, this is definitely one of them. Alright, if you want to support the channel, the details are right down below in the description and some of the ways you can do it. Otherwise, send me a like, send me a follow, send me a subscription, all that good stuff, and I'd appreciate it. and we will see you.